Scott Lauber is in Clearwater. You think he had a grouper sandwich just yet?
Knowing Scott, yes. I would believe he's been to Frenchie's on several occasions already and had several grouper sandwiches.
We're about to find out. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We go down to Clearwater, where Scott Lauber checks in with the Phils as pitchers and catchers are there. A lot of pitcher stories to get into. Matt Klintak speaking, Joe Girardi the other day, and, of course, everybody's talking about the cheating scandal that basically the Astros owner decided to say, who cares? We didn't get caught. We won, so move on with your lives. How are the Phillies taking it? Let's bring Scott into the conversation and talk a little Phil. Scott, how's Clearwater, man?
Hey, guys. How are you?
We're doing great. Did you hit the grouper joints yet? Do you have your spot yet?
I actually haven't yet.
I lost the bet.
Tonight.
I lost the bet.
I feel kind of like I'm behind on that front. But, yeah, I think tonight sounds like a grouper sandwich night.
Clearwater Bait House. That's where you need to go. Clearwater Bait House. That's where you go. All right.
This guy's been there like a billion times at Clearwater, and you're telling him where to go.
There's a lot of people who don't know that place, actually.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Is that better than Frenchie's, in your opinion?
Yes. I think the Clearwater Bait House is the best on the entire island.
Contest time.
Have you been there before?
I have not, no.
Okay, the Clearwater Bait House.
Go now, and the next time we talk, I'll report back.
100%. You've got to go to the Clearwater Bait House. It is so when you go over the bridge into Clearwater, it's right there on the left, across from like where the aquarium is, around that area. So it's before you get to the circle.
I got it. So you know what? That's actually on the way back to where I'm staying. So maybe I'll hit that up tonight and give you a full report.
Yes, Clearwater Bait House. Now, it looks like a little tiny wooden shack, and you're going to be like, what the hell is he talking about? But you got to walk through the bait shop, and then out back there is a deck, and the food is unbelievable. It is by far the best down
Just
there.
don't say, I know Mike Gill, or Mike Gill sent me here.
Is there a secret password when you get past the bait shack?
Yes, exactly.
Is there a handshake or a
You got to go through the kitchen like Goodfellas.
Yeah, you do. You're going literally through a bait shop, and out back there's a little bar that has maybe 5 stools and like maybe a handful of picnic tables. But you will take time out of your day, Scott, to find me and text me or tweet me or something. Thank you for the recommendation. I promise you.
Okay. We're on record. I'm going to do it.
All right, man. So I want to get into, first off, I think number one that hasn't been talked a lot about because there's so much going on around this team is Jake Arrieta and where he is. This is a guy that's making a ton of money. He's on the last year of that deal, and it feels like the Phillies need this guy because of where their rotation is. What kind of Jake Arrieta are we anticipating for his third and final year in Philly?
Yeah, I wrote about this a bit yesterday, and it's sort of the third year of the 3-year deal, and it's Jake Arrieta is kind of a funny case study, because if you look at his 2 years so far with the Phillies, his first 4 months of 2018 were pretty darn good. I think he had a 3.11 RA or something like that after the first start he made in August. That's pretty late into the season with a really good ERA, and then it, of course, completely spiraled out of control for him. He had a really bad last 6 weeks, kind of wrecked his whole season, and kind of colors the way we look at his 2018 season in general because of how bad his finish was. Now, he comes to spring training last year, and he tells us about this knee problem that he had that he actually made worse during a workout in the offseason last year, and ultimately had to have some minor surgery to clean up some cartilage in that knee that he says affected him down the stretch last year. So, okay, you say, all right, well, there's a reason for it. Maybe that explains why he was so bad. And then the first month, 5 weeks of last year, he was actually pretty good. His ERA was under 4 again, and he was pitching relatively well. And then, it all kind of unravels from there, in large part because of this bone spur that he develops. And he can't throw his cutter, and suddenly he can't throw his curveball, and now he's got a very diminished fastball and nothing off speed. And we all saw how that turned out. He got knocked around pretty good in June, July, and the first 2 weeks of August before he shut it down and had surgery. So he comes to camp again. He says he's 100% healthy. I saw him play long toss yesterday with Vince Velasquez, and, he looked healthy. I hesitate to say, God, the guy looked great, or, he looks tremendous, because everyone says that this time of year. everyone should be fresh this time of year. But there was some zip on that ball, and he was throwing the ball without any pain. And so, okay, if Jake Arrieta says that when he's healthy, he can still be an effective pitcher, his first 2 years in Philly proved that to be correct. I mean, he's not the dominant guy he was with the Cubs, but he is an effective pitcher when he's healthy. Now, will he stay healthy this year? That's a huge question. He doesn't have to be their second best pitcher this year. He just has to be, their number 3. And, if he can be an effective number 3 for them, if he can pitch the way he has pitched for the large part of the time he's been healthy when he's been with the Phillies, that's going to be an all right number 3 starter. It really will.
He has challenged, Scott, for, quietly challenged as one of the most unlikable athletes in Philadelphia for the last few years, as far as talking a lot of big game and putting up really not anything for what is. And you're right about the health, but some of that is, thanks for telling us, like in retrospect. He's just not – he really needs to stay healthy to appeal, or else he's going to be hearing it. But I'm curious about the bullpen, and I was shocked to hear Joe Girardi even use David Robertson's name as kind of a second-half asset that they might have, knowing that surgery, the Tommy John, is usually a 12 to 18-month recovery. And I think people forget a lot of times that when pitchers do come back, they're pretty bad to start. They have no control. It's all. I mean, to even throw that out there, I was surprised by a veteran like Girardi to say that.
I think it speaks to excuse me. It speaks to how well the first 6 months of Robertson's rehab have gone.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy's 6 months of surgery and hasn't thrown a bullpen session yet to speak of throwing off a mound. And so you're right. I mean, a year would put you into August, and then if he did come back at the 12-month mark, what kind of pitcher do you have? Do you have David Robertson at 50% of his old self, 70%, 80%, and if they're in contention for a playoff spot, do you want to put that kind of trust in a guy who's coming off that surgery? So tons and tons of unanswered questions still about David Robertson, and I will believe that he will contribute to this bullpen when I see him pitching in minor league games and not having any setbacks and feeling A-okay
right,
with enough time to spare before the end of the year.
So I know it's a little early. I think there's a lot of optimism that Sir Anthony can come back and kind of be what he was 2 years ago. The Tommy Hunters, the Adam Morgans, or the Veranos, and everything like that. Where do you see this bullpen shaping up? Do you think it will be a strength as they hope it to be, or do you see a lot of question marks?
I see a lot of question marks. You've hit on them. A lot of them are health related. If Sir Anthony Dominguez is healthy, if Adam Morgan is healthy, if it sounds like Victor Arano is going to be a little bit behind early in camp, and by behind I mean 2 or 3 weeks behind everybody else. So that puts his opening day in some jeopardy. Then you've got the Francisco Lirianos and Drew Storms and Anthony Swarzaks of the world, who are here on a minor league contract with a non-roster invite to camp. We're looking to make the team. They all have major league track records, but spotty success or very limited amount of success the last few years. You have a guy like Bud Norris, who was a closer once upon a time, was a starter once upon a time, and didn't pitch at all last year. So, lots of these question marks, whether they're health-related or performance-related, if most of them get answered, positively, the bullpen will be fine. If it doesn't, well, then they're going to need a lot of help. And, what do you do also about, so you've got this fifth starter competition going on between Pavetta, Velasquez, and Ranger Suarez, probably, maybe Cole Irvin once the games begin. Whoever doesn't win that, 3 guys are not going to win that competition. Do you take one and move him to the bullpen, or do you send him to AAA and leave him stretched out to start? Because you and I know that you need more than 5 starters. You need 7, 8, or 9 to get through a season, and their depth in AAA is a little bit thin. So what do you do with the guys who don't get that fifth starter spot? Tons and tons of questions related to pitching that'll be answered over the next 6 weeks, and it could go so many different ways for them.
Scott Lauber's with us live in Clearwater with the Phils. How realistic? You got Alec Baum, you got Spencer Howard. Do they have any shot to impress enough to say we got to make a decision here. Like these guys, much like they did with Kingery a couple of years ago, it was like this guy was too good. We had to take him.
Right.
Do they have any shot to make enough of an impression to force the Phillies to keep him?
Yeah, I mean, look, they have a shot. You brought up Kingery 2 years ago in the Phillies camp. I remember covering the Red Sox when Jackie Bradley Jr. Impressed enough in spring training to make the team despite having not played a game above Double-A in his minor league career. So, sure, I mean, guys at this stage of camp who you feel like on paper are probably not going to break with the team, if they have an undeniably strong camp, then they force someone's hand. They force a decision and force their way up to the team. Excuse me. I think in a perfect world, though, Alec Boehm begins the year in AAA. Spencer Howard is an especially interesting case because the Phillies are, fairly certain that he's going to pitch for them at some point this year. But he only pitched 100 innings last year in the minor leagues and the Arizona Fall League combined. So, he's going to be on kind of a pitch limit wherever he begins the season. And, Matt Klentak made the comment today, and I'm paraphrasing, but essentially every pitch he throws in February and every pitch he throws in March is going to be one less pitch that he can throw in September. And the Phillies are going to want him in September if he's really that good. So, he's going to be on a bit of a limit in spring training and maybe even early in the season. Now, what if he has a great camp? And what if in his limited action in camp, he proves that he's worthy of being on the team right now?
Yeah.
Do you break camp with this guy and then maybe move him to the bullpen later in the season to save his arm a little bit? They can go a number of ways with him. I still think he's going to open the season in AAA, maybe piggybacking starts with somebody else to make sure that he stays fresh. But if he starts the season strong, I don't think they're going to wait very long before they call him up. They've already indicated that they don't want to waste innings or waste pitches in the minor leagues.
In the infield, Scott, I was under the impression, I guess maybe, when they signed Didi and had to make the movement, that Kingery was going to start at third and Segura at second. Is that now not the case? Is Segura going to be third and Kingery's going to play at second?
I think you'll see Segura at third at some point in spring training just to get that look. They haven't ruled out going that way, but if I had to guess, I'd put it at about 90% that Kingery is going to be the third baseman and Segura at second, for the simple fact that Segura has played second in the past. He has not played third. He has played both. Mm-hmm. So even though Kingery's best position probably remains second base, as long as the infield is configured the way it is, and Segura, Kingery, and Didi are on the same team, I think they would probably rather Segura play where he's comfortable, and that would be second base rather than third.
Is the Chris Bryant talk pretty much dead for now? And it was Nolan or Arenado ever on in the discussion there?
I think it's. I don't know if it's totally dead. I think it's definitely quieted down considerably. What I know to be true is that the Phillies have on again, off again throughout the winter engaged the Cubs on Bryant. I'm sure they've engaged plenty of other teams on other players. I don't know if Arenado. I'm guessing they made a phone call because that's what GMs do. But Bryant was a challenge early in the offseason because nobody knew how that grievance was going to play out, whether he was going to have 1 year or two before free agency. Just a few weeks ago, he lost his grievance, which means that he has 2 years this year and next year before he's a free agent. So now there's a little bit more clarity about his value because you know how long you're going to have him if you trade for him. Mm-hmm. I don't know this for sure, but I think any deal with the Cubs for Bryant would have to involve a young pitcher. If you're talking to the Phillies, you're probably talking about Spencer Howard, and I think that's probably a non-starter for the Phillies. I think he's one guy that they really don't want to move. So I think given the current asking price for Bryant, it's probably the talks have probably died down considerably from wherever they were, if they were ever going strong to begin with, more than just checking in. Klentak said that there were offers that they made to other teams. There were offers that they kicked around with other teams about players this winter, but they couldn't work out a baseball trade. So, I don't know that Chris Bryant was one of them, but I do know they have talked to the Cubs, and I do think that the Cubs want a young pitcher in return, and that probably doesn't make them a match with the Phillies.
All right, Phillies pitchers and catchers continue. Scott Lauber, the Inquirer, Inquirer.com, and, of course, he appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Clearwater Baithouse, Scott.
You got it. I'm on my way.
Take care.
See you, Scott.
And, you can check out my list of spots to go on our website, 973ESPN.com. It's Sports Bash Live.